Oh, okay.
That's right. Just
I'm
lay
just
down.
having a wicked bitch of a headache. I don't know why.
You're you're you.
Yeah, I'm good. Don't worry. I can do the thing.
The thing.
Yes, the thing, my thing, with the buttons and flashing diodes and the thing that makes the beeping and booping noise.
The beep boop. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
because we're here for episode 5 of Depths of Gaming, which somehow survived 4 previous episodes. I suspect dark
Hello,
magic.
comrades. That's all thanks to communism. You know,
That's
the
all thanks
communism
to,
saves everything.
well, communism and the fact that we have no production value. So there you
Yeah,
go.
that's true.
Mm.
So, how are we today?
It only costs us $0 an episode, so we might as well
Hmm.
make a gajillion. Well, I'm doing fantastic. We have all sorts of amazing news of an amazing variety.
Oh, that's amazing.
I
Well,
I thought you would think so.
what's the
It's
first thing?
tremendous.
What's the first item on the news?
Well, the news is actually quite light. However, we do have an announcement for the
Ooh.
next Total War Warhammer game, which in their creativity, being Creative Assembly, have named it Total War Warhammer 2.
Makes sense. It's a game based on Total War engine, and it's a Warhammer game, and it's a Warhammer Fantasy game, and it's the second in a series.
Yeah, just no
So it
effort,
tells you
just practical name all the way.
Well, yeah, it's actually quite good because it tells you as a client everything that you need to know about the product,
How
right?
capitalist of you. Anyways, the big thing that they broadcasted is it's going to have the dark elves, the high elves, and the lizard men.
Yay! So basically, the Dark Eldar, and Filthy Xenos, and I believe that they also announced another race that possibly
A
might be
possible fourth
Necrons.
one.
That possibly might be Necrons.
Tomb Kings. But yes, that's my theory. And I'll explain that in a bit. But they did
Hmm.
come. They came up front and said the game. There's a whole campaign about Sotek, the lizard god. There's there's a big old picture right here of a high priest.
Hmm.
They're in, and they haven't had a game in so long. They appear in Blood Bowl, but they haven't actually got anything about them.
Yes. Now, the reason why I boiled down the entire thing to Warhammer 40k is because I don't really have that much knowledge about Warhammer Fantasy, aside maybe from the Blood Bowl games.
Well,
So,
there's a
my.
there's a
Mhm.
major reason for that. Is 40k gets all the screen time.
Yes, pretty much it's a case of self-fulfilling prophecy. 40k gets money, so 40k gets produced,
Yeah.
so 40k gets money, and fantasy kind of spirals in the opposite direction. Fantasy does not make money, so fantasy is not being promoted, so fantasy makes less money.
So the ironic thing is they only started making Total Warhammer when they killed off the old world fantasy entirely because
Yeah,
it
basically
all
by
got
introducing Space
destroyed.
Marines.
Yeah, it all got destroyed, and now they're the Sigmarines.
Yes.
They're the Stormcast Eternals. They have crossbows that are basically bolters. They basically look like Space Marines. They're fantasy Space Marines. And the thing is, I
So
looked at their
basically,
stats. The stats for their bolt guns are fucking insane. You can have an army. You could just play Space Marines in fantasy. It's kind of upsetting.
how did they call the event? The Age of Ultron?
That's basically what happened. As I choked to death
Hey,
on coffee.
don't you die on me.
Who will turn off the stream? Anyways, so yeah, now all of a sudden they're making a bunch of money off fantasy. They made Vermintide. They're making it this, and there's a third Total Warhammer game that they're gonna make.
Yeah, it's incredible. If you promote a product, it will sell.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
and Total War Warhammer turned out to be the war game we kind of wanted, because it operated fairly close to how the game actually works. And at first, Bretonia was just kind of a little NPC nation and they didn't really do much. But now all of a sudden they've been built into a real army, and and so now the old world of Warhammer is fairly complete.
Yeah, it's actually, now that I think about it, it's basically they figured out, oh, we have an IP that we can make money on, so we're going to promote it and we're going to sell it and it's going to be fun.
Because with their patches and DLCs, now most of about 80% of all the army lists are in the game. So because at first the big stuff like the Mortis Engine and the Blood Knights and Squigs, there were a bunch of kind of peripheral units that weren't in the game that were really kind of missing, and then they came in later.
Now, the entire success of this is basically, at least in my opinion, based around the fact that the total we play the Total War games, right?
Yes.
It's basically the you play a Total War game and you know what you expect. At least it was so until the Warhammer came to the picture. You got your shoguns, you got your European wars, you got your American civil wars, and so on and so forth. And at some point, you crave something that goes a little bit beyond. It pushes the envelope.
Absolutely.
And that was basically Warhammer. And that was basically Warhammer. It took the Total War formula and ran with it to its own universe. And it really pushed the newness of the idea, and now we're getting more that idea refined in the second outing of it. At least we hope so, right?
Yeah. So earlier we brought up the Tomb Kings, and this is why. So here on my screen is the map of the old of the entire Warhammer Fantasy world before it got completely fucked up. Thank you, Games Workshop.
You know what? That looks strangely like our own world.
Yeah, it's almost as if they just started drawing kind of Europe, and then they went, let's make kind of Africa, and then let's make kind of Eurasia, and then obviously we need to sail across the sea and find kind of America.
Yeah, it kind of looks like you basically gave a map, gave a pencil to an stereotypical American, and told him to draw a map of the world. That's the reason why the Europe is kind of shriveled up and not really there.
Well, Europe's shriveled up, and Eurasia it's got a Florida on it for some reason.
Yeah, and there's no Australia there
Well,
either.
Australia is like this little
Because
shriveled island over here.
yeah, it's basically like it's not that important, so we don't really have to kind of place it there.
And
It's kind of
then North America is just big, but South America is this tiny little shriveled thing.
well, yeah, of course it has to be big, right? Because America is big.
And then Iceland is near the equator and circular.
Yes. Well, it basically it's the place where Americans dropped all their nuclear bomb tests on. That's the reason why there's this like one crater there,
And then we of
right?
course cannot forget Africa, which is apparently the biggest continent in the world.
But most desolate and basically is covered mostly by deserts,
It's
right?
divided between jungle and desert. Yes.
But mostly desert.
Yeah. No, it looks about half on this map. It literally is like, oh well, half of it's Egypt and the other half of it's the Congo. That's how that works, right?
Well, of course.
But back to our point
Yes.
is so the gimmick with all of these three games is eventually their campaign maps will be able to combine and become an epic game, much like how in the old Turtle War games, the epic map had the option of just being the whole fucking world, and you could just play on the whole world.
Yes.
That is eventually going to be possible here. So you could play as the Empire and then eventually sail over and conquer the Lizardmen, or that kind of thing. It will no longer, the Empire will no longer be kind of a border of the game world, and so in order to get across the Great Ocean, there's Ulthuan, which is where the High Elves live, and then they said that the Dark Elves in the North American area here are going to come into play, and so will the Lizardmen. So that's the entire left half of the map, the western half.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory is, in order to make that combined map, they have to put in this area, Araby, and combined with Araby is
And
the
of
land
course
the
it's
dead.
called Araby.
Of course, it's called Araby, which is again probably what the American with the pencil called it. Is he goes, what the fuck is that place called? It's Araby.
Yeah. Pretty much.
What do we call them? Arabs. Well, it's Araby, obviously.
It's good that they didn't call it the Arabistan.
Oh, that would be very hard to explain. But the Tomb Kings live in the land of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory is tucked deep, deep, deep in the southeastern border of the combined map is going to be the land of the dead, and that's where the Tomb Kings will operate.
I see.
Because in Araby there are all sorts of like other human armies that are kind of around there. So they have stuff to conquer, and eventually something will come to them. That's my theory. I could be wrong because there are other races, like there's the Skaven and there's the Chaos Dwarves and the Ogre Kingdoms, but those seem to be over on the far eastern side of the map.
Yeah, I see that.
So
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I think it's the Tomb Kings also, because they're the kind of the closest to where we're talking about.
Yeah, it still might be Skavens, but we'll see.
It might also be the Skavens. We don't know. We'll see.
This is all speculation on our part.
Uh, we're talking. Words just keep coming out at this point.
Yes.
Total BS, but it might be true because they also have this little like river thing there that connects. So who knows? And the not quite sure what else there is to say except for it's going to be awesome having these giant lizard tanks you can fucking crash into people's formations. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because the lizard men
This is
have all sorts of like giant fucking lizard people that they use as living siege engines.
hmm this is definitely going to be interesting.
Oh yeah. I'm not too happy about there being even more elven armies. I've played against wood elves in Total Warhammer, and it's really, really kind of depressing. They just kind of run away from. It's all micro. They just run away from you and blink you with arrows. That's their whole thing.
Yeah.
It's about as interesting to watch in the game as it is to watch at a table. Which is to say, not at all. Oh yeah, I'm going to move back so and so inches and plink with my arrows. Oh, you got close again. I'm going to move so and so and plink with my arrows. Okay, is this game over yet?
Not until you are resembling a hedgehog, my friend.
Thankfully, the new wood elves are like tree people, and they like swarm you, and they teleport through trees and shit. So they're not. So it's not that bad.
I see.
I mean, especially because you have your space marines with their bolters. Okay. Now on to answers nobody wanted. Where
This
we
time
argue,
with double the
yeah,
this time with double the excitement.
double the excitement. So first, we're gonna talk about them murder hobos, them crazy murder hobos. So
Oh no.
So Moses the Wise tells this story about how he got pretty fucking tired of his party, and because they're the kind of folks that kind of go from building to building, room to room, and they go, all right, what's in the room? Well, so and so's in the room. I make a check against that thing. Okay.
Wait, what? I think you're mixing up the stories here.
No. Because this guy's like, well, there's a person in the room. Oh, well, I
But
intimidate
these are
him.
not. But oh, yeah, because you were talking about going from room to room, rolling for
No. That's
the checks. That's the second thing.
Well, it just so happens that Mubber Hordors. Well, those Mobo Hordors, they just hold the door all the time. No, they. It is known. They they just happen to do this second thing too, but we'll get to that later. But these guys are like, well, there's something we can do. There's a person in here. I'm gonna roll. Okay.
Intimidation.
Intimidation. Okay. What are you trying to accomplish? Well, you tell me. I rolled 19.
Yeah, that's not how you intimidate people. You have to have a reason to intimidate people.
And he's like, so he's intimidated, right? And so this is kind of an aside. I hate it when people do this because I DM a lot. Most people hire. Oh yeah, right. Most people ask me to DM for them, and so I've done a lot of it because I figured, well, if I don't know anyone that wants to DM, well, then I'm the DM. Uh, someone has to do it.
Yeah, makes sense.
So this tends to be what people do when they don't really understand the rules very well. Is they look at their sheet, they see intimidate, they see search, they see all that, and they don't hunt in the book to see how they can actually use it. They just roll. They just say, "I use this, I roll for it," or even worse of all, they say, "Can I use this?" or "Should I roll for this?" I'm like, well, are you doing it? What are you doing? This is a game, because they think they're sitting at a console looking down at a person from above like they're in a video game.
Hmm. And
That's
that's not really
it's not what you're
role playing
doing.
is about.
No,
Yeah.
you're supposed to immerse yourself and go, "Hey, I am this person. What do I see? What is in here? What does it smell like? Who had
In theory,
who
you
cut what?"
can just in theory in D&D you can do anything you want,
Yeah,
right? But
you
the
can
question
play it that
is,
way, and some people
should
do.
you?
The question
Yeah.
is, should you?
Yeah.
Because you're right. Some people do play that way, and I can't make them not play that way because it's apparently illegal. But uh, it's
Yeah,
I try to steer
it's difficult
people
for a DM.
towards it because from a DM's perspective, you're not giving me a lot to go on because I make up a lot of what's going on the spot, and
Hmm.
I use the DMG for the basis for all of my DCs. However, I I feel like I'm getting thrown a curveball when you just name the skill and say, "Can I roll for it?" Because
Yeah, basically, the way it's supposed to be, at least the way it was explained to me by a more experienced player,
yeah,
is that you basically, as a player, have to say what you're doing. You have to explain it, elaborate. The part of role playing it is the description process,
yeah,
and during the description, you have to push your imagination to the point where you create the situation, and then the GM can kind of craft in, oh, I'm great that you're doing this and that you're attempting that. I detected that this is an intimidation thing, so I'm going to let you roll, and because you did it very well and have like reasons for it and have descriptions for it and so on and so forth, I'm going to give you a bonus of such and such to your roll.
yeah. Like an example is I have this one guy in one of my groups, and I have a hard time describing stuff for him because he'll do that. He'll ask if he can use a skill, and then he says, "Can I do this in order to get this outcome?" and we're gonna talk about this more later, but they is players don't seem to understand sometimes that there is a step between the reward,
Mm-hmm.
and that is where you have to actually earn it. You have to say, I is for instance, the intimidation example. If you say, "I want to intimidate this guy so he runs away," well, as a DM, I go, "How?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? How are you doing it? Why do you think?" Because they don't ask any questions about what they're fighting or any of that. They just assume that if they roll a high intimidation, it'll run away.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's not really the way it's supposed to be, right?
and
At least,
and I
yeah.
can and yeah, I agree. because this is the way I would rationalize it, is if I wanted to make something run away and say I was playing a big old fighter. Okay, well, I'm gonna roll intimidation. I'm going to take my sword and I'm gonna like clang it against my shield. I'm gonna scream at him really loud, and I'm gonna roll for it. Okay, and okay, go for it. Roll, roll, roll. Okay, I got a 19. Oh, he looks kind of, he's frightened of you right now. He's not gonna move closer to you. Or rather, I'd maybe make him roll for it, and if he rolled really good, he'd get disadvantage. I don't know, but that's a way you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you say that to a GM, they're much more likely to work with you. When if you just say I use skill X on Y, I rolled high. What happens?
Yeah, role-playing games are not necessarily point-and-click adventures. You cannot just pick everything against everything and expect to eventually get a result.
Yeah.
They are
It's
much more closer to real life than that. At least an improvised real life.
absolutely, and this ties into the murder hobo thing because that's just that on steroids. Is they go through the whole campaign world using skills and weapons on whatever they run into, and gather whatever they find, and it's just the quest for more loot for them, loot and experience.
Mhm. And if you actually want to play the numbers game, Clicker Heroes is probably a better solution for you.
Yeah, because in Clicker Heroes, you can just keep killing whatever you want, and there's no repercussions whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no repercussions, and you can get that satisfaction on having numbers grow and getting loot and
Because,
increasing the numbers.
yeah, being a murder hobo is a play style. It really is. It's not a sign that you're a bad person. It's not a sign that you don't know how to roleplay. It's just that's how you know how to play.
Hmm.
And that can be fixed. You can train yourself. Like, it's all about experience. A lot of people when they start out, they just kind of tend to
Hmm.
play that way because that's what they're used to in games like Morrowind and Fallout 4. Any of the Fallout games actually is it's just running around killing people, getting better equipment, going around killing more people, better equipment. That's why I'm so glad that Fifth Edition went. Hey, here are the weapons that exist. They all have. They all represent any kind of this category, and that's that. Because what tended to ruin 3.5 is it's all the number one question they always ask whenever they find any item: is it better than what I'm using?
Hmm.
Be, and this gets very interesting in 5th edition because a lot of monsters use weapons that you have access to but roll more damage, and they think in their heads that this weapon is better than what they're using because it deals more damage against them. However, when they pick it up, they either can't use it or it's just a normal weapon for them, and it always bums them out because they think that weapons are just like they get stronger and stronger like they did in 3.5.
Yeah, you basically start at level 1 with a rusty sword, then you have a long sword, then you have a great sword, then you have a super laser sword, and so
Yeah,
on and so forth.
where a lot of the magic weapons behave more or less like a regular weapon, and they have a few extra abilities thrown in. And then there's just the straight up like +1 stuff, or same way with armor is it either does something or it's the plus. They balanced it so that you're not continually upgrading your equipment. like you
Mm-hmm.
would in 3.5, and I really thank him for it, because it was very frustrating having to go, oh yeah, this weapon is slightly different than the one you've come across. Well, how many more damage points does it do? Does it have what's its crit range? What's this that? Going, it was frustrating.
Yeah, but then again, you have to think about this in a way that actually, um, why do people play Dungeons and Dragons? Well, they play to have fun, and there is this part of me that wants to say, well, if your players want to get loot and get it like linearly better, and they are not really fond of role playing and so on and so forth, but when you provide this to them as a GM and they are having fun and you're having fun with them, with your friends, then what's really the harm in that, right?
I don't know. I think if there's an opportunity to better yourselves as a role playing group, you might as well take it. And
Yes.
I feel that being too linear really hurts, because your creativity starts to run out and you're looking for more. Because I
Hmm.
had a phase where I was always starting new campaigns because I'd write myself into a corner and then I'd just try something else. And so now with Shadowrun, we've been kind of uh, going along. We're doing story connected runs. We're doing not story connected runs, and now I'm doing two fifth edition games with my offline group. They're about to start Out of the Abyss,
I see.
and that's going to be pretty entertaining. But being murder hobo is definitely a play style, and it's easy enough to break. Is you just try. Is
Hmm.
is you think, well, I'm walking to a city. Well, what does this city have? You go and if it's a big enough city, you can name any kind of business and roll some kind of check for it, and probably maybe find it. Worst that could happen is you look for one and it's not there. Like that's something character I think more characters should do, is they should go, all right, well, I'm walking around town, I want to find weapon shop. I spent so and so hours looking around, and I'm just noting locations that I can go back to later. Hopefully, you'll find a handful of weapon shops. There you go. You have places to go. Because you know those RPGs where you get in a town and then you have
Hmm.
to unlock more locations.
So it's kind of a Metroidvania kind of style.
No, no. I was thinking more how first you only know like the basic locations, like the taverns and all that, and then as you learn more, you
Oh, I
unlock more
see.
places you can go to in town. It's a lot like
Oh,
that.
like that. Mhm.
It's a lot
Makes
like
sense.
that because you have to find these places and businesses, and some of them are hidden and all that. Like people forget about that.
Yeah, I get the idea.
One party that I just the other off the offline group, the first thing they did is they started is the paladin got a job with the local bureaucratic government, and
Hmm.
another player started building a house in a fine neighborhood. Like they they have they already have a connection to the game world, and they're not murder hoboing at all. It's kind of admirable. Where with Jerry, when I played D&D with him, his he was is he you remember he had a spaceship and he was just going from planet to planet seeing who he could recruit and conquer.
Hmm.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I do have to agree with that. It's yeah.
He was being a space murder hobo. A little more
He
space
was,
pirate.
but he kind of made it work.
Yeah, he made it work. He had
He was a
cannons.
space pirate,
He was a space
like from
pirate.
One Piece.
Yeah, only not at all. It's more like the Disney Treasure Planet than anything.
Yeah,
Those are the kinds of ships. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think there's anything more to add about the murder hoboing.
and now for the other thing that murder hobos do: rolling high on searches.
Yeah. So Packrat1010 asks, how does rolling for searches work when you get a high roll in a search that wouldn't normally yield anything? I rolled a nat
Hmm.
20 while searching a chamber pot for weapons with a +3. And the DM sound I found poo and possibly lockjaw. Yep, tetanus. He said even with the high roll there wouldn't be anything. Hold on. So hold on. Yeah, this is Murder Hobo 101. Is the DM lists these many objects are in the room. Okay, well my mind says that these objects he described are search locations. So I'm gonna start with the chamber pot. What do I find? I rolled a nat 20. You find poop. Good job, idiot. Once again, the DM was like, yeah, no. I'm glad that more and more DMs are just not putting up with this at all.
Yeah, I when I think about this, it's basically that depends on the basically the GM style of play. Some GMs like to wing it, and that kind of gives them a little bit of an incentive to reward high rolls. However, uh, there are other kinds of GMs that basically prepare everything beforehand. They basically populate the dungeon with all the items, and it's up to the player to find them. They can or they can't, depending on their role. And sometimes it doesn't matter how well you roll because you're finding nothing, because there's nothing there to find.
Correct. For instance, say you walk up to a wall, go, okay, I'm investigating this wall. It looks suspicious. I think there might be a hidden wall here. Rolled a nat 20. What do I find? Stonework. You found stonework. You search the wall, you do not find a secret door. But I rolled
Makes
high.
sense.
But there wasn't a
But there's
secret door
nothing
there.
there.
And the DMG kind of throws in some mulligans for this. For instance, if there was a hidden trapdoor beneath a rug, you don't have to roll a check. You can just go, hey, I pull up the rug. Is there anything under there? Yeah, there's a trapdoor. There you go.
You can, however, roll for the rug to search the room, and then you find something suspicious about the rug, right?
Correct. That's the way to do it.
And you don't really have to search for anything in particular. You can just search the room in general for suspicious things, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when with 5th edition there are two arguments that people perpetually have about skills, about perception versus investigation, and what was the other one? Oh yeah, insight versus something else. Oh yeah, it was like it's always related to perception, but Investigation is for actually like combing over stuff and looking for it. Well, perception is noticing things,
Hmm.
and people usually get that confused. So yeah, that because this is a real murder hobo-y thing as well. They just they roll skills down a checklist and they see what they can loot and then they move on. There was one game I ran. Well, I made the mistake of of rewarding making a bunch of search checks because I was like, well, these guys are just kind of uh, not really looking around. I figure if I give them an incentive, they'll do it more. And so they
Hmm.
just kept finding shit, and this led to them strip searching every single room they went in. And after the fourth or fifth room, I went, okay, this is no more. I jacked up the DC and I was like, I'm done. I can't keep going like this because we're just gonna spend the whole dungeon uh, tearing apart rooms. And but there was another time, however, with you were in this game is my first real online fifth edition game. We had Petros who was a paladin, and we were going
Hmm.
through a dungeon, and I decided that there was a secret door in the room, and I semi foreshadowed it. There was like drapes and such, and robes and curtains and such in the room, and he goes straight to one of them and starts looking behind it, and I went, well, I did kind of want there to be one in this room, so fuck it. Yeah, you found one. Found a secret door.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it was part of the concept of the dungeon is I wanted there to be like a bunch of kind of behind the scenes rooms. So
Hmm.
if you were really clever, you knew you could bypass some of the deadlier traps. So you you can look for stuff, you can search for stuff, just as long as you're not doing it in every room and expecting to get a reward every time. Like
Hmm.
be more be more common sense about what you're looking in. Like it doesn't matter what you roll. If you're looking in a chamber pot and you really have to roll to see something in it, you're probably not going to find anything in it.
Pretty much.
Like when people ask, "What's in the box?" Well, you go to open it, and it's locked
Or trapped.
or trapped. Yeah, that's happened before too. One time to fuck with my offline players, they were like, "Okay, I'm opening this door," and I reached up to grab one of the trap damage dice, and then I held it for like half a second, and then put it down. And went, it opens.
Sadly, you cannot do that over Skype.
Well, no, you can roll the. I could roll the damage dice and then actually have it mean something else.
Oh, that's true. You can do that.
Like I roll 3d10 and it says like 44, and I'm like, holy shit! I take 44 damage. Oh no, there are 44 gems in the lockbox.
That's a bit evil, but yeah, you can do that.
Um, and every time I do something like that, I just think back to Code Monkeys. They have this character that owns the game business, uh, Larity, and
Hmm.
Larity is a crazy like psychotic Texan investor who just bought the game business to make money. And he has a bunch of crazy catchphrases. Like in one episode, he like he goes, "Keep them guessing," and he says it like 20, like 6 times in the episode. Just goes, "Keep them guessing." And that's what I think back to every time I do something like that. Just go, keep them guessing. Gotta keep them guessing, man. They don't know what's going on. They aren't gonna know how to stop you. Uh, You keep saying you're not a DM. Like, what do you think about this being able to skills and rolling high and shit like that?
Well, if I were to ever DM a game, I would basically obsess over preparing everything beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
and then my players would basically go off track,
Which
and
they will.
I, which they definitely will, and then I would be just frustrated because I prepared all that shit, and none of it is going to see the light of day.
Wait, now which is, by the way, exactly why I use so much improv in my sessions. Because I tried
Yeah,
that once. I tried to actually plan out whole sessions, and they either weren't entertained because they thought it was too railroady, or they
hmm
immediately ditched the railroad, and I was forced to make shit up anyway.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe a good idea would be to uh, prepare like a table of items that can be found, and then beforehand,
Well, the
and
DMG
then
has charts
mhm.
upon charts upon charts of just random shit you can find.
Yeah, and
It,
basically use that.
yeah, fifth edition DMG, very back of the book, starting at starting at page 292. Is it's just charts. It's just charts about you can roll on to see all sorts of things. You can roll for what the chamber looks like. You can roll for monster motivations, random traps, random tricks, dungeons dressings, containers, all sorts of stuff. And it's not that hard. It's just a big table, so you can make your own anyway.
Yeah,
Or if you don't like a result, you can play with it. Either way, it's just about finding stuff. Is it when they do find stuff, if your players are obsessing over finding everything,
hmm
then you might as well just give them stuff off tables that looks useful but's actually just junk.
yeah, it makes sense.
However, because there are like art objects and stuff like that that's worth gold, so you can also throw that in as if they oh good they found a gemstone, it's worth like 10 gold. Good job.
Or they found completely useless coinage.
You'll find a dwarven piece that was forged in the island of Zarthur. What's it worth? I don't know. It's of a metal I've never seen before. It's basically worthless. Good to know. Thank you.
Yes, it's worth a fortune in this very specific place, in this
I,
very specific plane,
I
on this
bet you
very
if you went
continent.
to that one continent and tried to spend it there, it'd be worth a fortune.
But here, it's pretty much useless.
Here, it's basically copper. AKA, fuck you, you found worthless money. That's the other way to fuck with people is give them a bunch of money, but it's not worth shit. That was a Scooby Doo plot hook once. Is he was trying to get a fortune from staying in a spoopy house, and it
Yeah.
turns out it was like Civil War bonds or something.
And all of them meant nothing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, good, these Civil War bonds, they're worth about $25. Ah, good old Scooby Doo. They used to say 2 bits back
Hmm.
before Velma suddenly transformed from a 6 to a 9.
Wait, what?
Yeah, in the new cartoons, all of a sudden Velma's really, really thin and has giant boobs.
I'm glad I'm not watching those anymore.
They basically went, well, we don't want this big thick chick in a sweater to give people the idea that they're allowed to have any body type they want.
Yes, because everything has to be about sex.
Absolutely, especially because fucking
Well, sex does sell.
sex does sell. It really does, but it's Cartoon Network, man. It's
Listen, you have to get your kids hooked on early. Otherwise, they're not going to respond to advertisements too well afterwards.
It's like the argument of we have to hide sex from our kids until they're 18. But aren't they going to experiment with it? We're going to hide it. They can't find it if we hide it, but they're going to just it's hidden. They can't find it. It's not going to happen. What do you mean my daughter's pregnant? Uh,
Like that situation where
it was hidden.
Best Buy knew that daughter of a guy was pregnant before he did.
Yeah. Yeah. But but back to the Nat 20 thing is
Yes.
the number one thing that people always reply to these kinds of posts is a Nat 20 is an automatic success. And
Yes, you can automatically succeed at finding nothing.
and I'm actually I'm pretty sure they're right. I cuz because it would be a little absurd if that was really how it worked. Because, yeah, the DCs go from hard to nearly impossible, and it goes up from 20 to 25 to 30. So there's not really. Yeah, there's not really a way where, as a level 1, you can just always succeed with a Nat 20. You just don't have enough. You probably just don't have enough skill for it. Unless, of course, you stacked yourself, in which case, unless it was DC 30, you're not going to be able to do it. So there's always that chance, but it's probably not going to fucking happen.
So there. We have, I believe, everything on
Yeah, I'm
our
pretty sure
agenda.
that's everything for Depths of Gaming this week.
Thank you everyone for joining in.
Yes, as a great man once said, Rizzle Fluffen Fluffen.
Whatever that means.
I have no idea either. He just kind of screamed it when he was getting crushed. But yes, good talk. Good talk. Signing out.